Faith Middleton. I can't believe you're sitting at this desk.
And Nyberg.
So thanks very much for coming on.
My pleasure.
And thanks for having me on the other day too, by the way.
My
So listen,
pleasure.
before you say anything, I need to brag about you. So get ready, sit back. Two-time Peabody Award winner for journalism. Mark Twain Award from the Connecticut Press Association. Distinguished Public Service Award of the Connecticut Bar Association, joining the ranks of Helen Keller, Richard Rogers, Arthur Miller, Dr. Henry Lee. 32 years as the host and executive producer of the Faith Middleton Show, WNPR. This goes on and on and on. This is just, I'm scratching the surface here, an institution in radio broadcasting. And coming up in October, you will be inducted into the Connecticut Women's Hall of Fame alongside internationally renowned photographer Annie Leibovitz, NPR foreign conflict correspondent Ann Garrels. Others who have been inducted before you: four-time Academy Award winner Katharine Hepburn, famed scientists, explorers, artists, musicians, scholars. You say what to all of this?
It is very bad to tell that many lies on a new show. That is very, very bad.
It's all true. More than 12,000 interviews on your show. And it's probably more than that. You probably did this since you were a kid. Just like me, you started to gather information and tell stories?
I don't know if that's the case.
How did it start?
It really started because my mother was ambitious for her children. And so
what did your mother do?
She was a homemaker, and then she was a kind of social secretary at one point to the Kennedy family, and so we lived with them in Hyannisport.
You lived with the Kennedys in Hyannisport?
The year that Jack ran for the presidency. And we were supposed to go to the White House with him, but my mother became ill, and so we didn't go. But so my mother was very ambitious for her children, and my siblings were much older and out of the house. And I remember my sister was Miss Connecticut, and she was in the Miss America pageant, and there were, in 1953, and there were
This
photographers.
is Ohio, from Ohio, correct?
No, Connecticut.
Connecticut
She was
still.
Miss Connecticut. So I remember looking around at the photographers and all the presents coming in the mail, from soldiers to the beauty queen, and thinking, what am I going to do? I think I'm supposed to do something. It looks like, unconsciously people in my family do something. My brother was a championship boxer. My other sister was, a very, very well-known dancer. And so I worried about that a little bit.
So you felt pressure to figure out what it was that you were going to do?
It wasn't a pressure to figure out what it was. It was just an internal sense of, I need to do something because they have. I need to do something.
So when did this start?
So I'm crossing the street in front of Aetna Insurance Company. People have just gotten out for their lunch break.
This was what year?
I must have been, I think, probably 16.
Okay.
And I'm crossing in the midst of the traffic, and the place is buzzing with action. People, up and down the street. It was like New York. And I had a sentence go through my head, and the sentence was, I want to be going somewhere like these people. That was the sentence. And that, I think, is when a kind of inner positioning happened, where I thought, I don't know what that is, but it's important that I do something.
So what happens then? You're 16, you feel this in your head, okay, I have a direction now. So what do?
Well, actually, I was 14.
You just remembered.
I was 14, yes. And then what happens is my parents die. And that was a shock. And I go to live with my sister. So it's like Dickens. It was the best of times, it was the worst of times. So after the shock of that, the greatest thing in the world happens to me. I live with my sister Sally, who is to this day my best friend in all the world. We breathe the same air.
This was the dancer? This was the Miss America?
This was the Miss Connecticut one.
Okay.
And, we're still like that to this day. And she saved me. She
was your mom.
She was my sister, my best friend, my mom, and all I wanted to do was make her proud of me. And I wanted to be like her. I want to be just like her.
Have you told her? She knows all of this,
we
of
can't
course.
even, if we said one word to each other, in front of each other, or if you came into the room, Ann, and said, you two seem so close, that's it, we'd be hysterical crying. We had so much feeling for each other, we just start crying. And so we can't even look at each other if somebody says that to us, because they can see how close we are.
Is she still in Connecticut?
No, she lives on the Cape in Chatham.
Well, that's terrible. She should move back to Connecticut.
Well, I say that all the time.
So what happens? How does Faith Middleton become this interviewer extraordinaire? How does this start?
You are so kind.
Well, no, it's true. You
are a kind person.
Listen to me. You have a voice like butter, as they would say. You have a very soothing voice, so that when people listen to you over the years,
they fall asleep.
No, it's almost like a yoga instructor. And I have done yoga. I love yoga. So when I hear Faith Middleton, to me, it's like butter. I'm telling you. So I think that has led, in part, to your crazy, wonderful mind. But there is a very soothing sound to your voice.
People say that to me all the time. And that was a surprise to me. And it still is, to some degree, a surprise. But I think part of it, everybody has a rhythm in the heart. And I think that's why certain pieces of music appeal to certain people. I think it matches some rhythm in the person's heart. And that's why you turn to a certain instrument, the cello, the piano, the flute, a certain rhythm, a certain beat. And the irony is that I play congas. I'm a Latin.
I want video of you playing the congas.
I'm a Latin conga player. I mean, it's a big, big drum.
Okay, that's awesome.
And I play, but that is filled. You should. I mean, when I'm playing, it's like I just have a lot of rhythm, and I was just born that way. And so I play them like crazy to Latin music, Caribbean music. It's so opposite of this voice that people talk to me about on the air when they say you are so calm and so soothing. I get what that is. I get, you know what it is? I think this about you too. I think this about you. Wasn't there a time, couldn't you say there was a time in your life when you took your chair and sat down in your chair in this world?
Oh, sure.
And I think when that happens, you slow down. When you take your seat in the world and you consciously do it, you slow down, and your voice slows down. You feel comfortable being yourself, doing your natural rhythm.
Age, don't you think?
Well, it's true. When I first started out, you would be rolling on the floor. I thought to be interesting, you had to speak quickly.
Well, listen, I knew this was going to happen. We were going to get off all these tangents. So we
were going to get into you as well.
Well, no, and we're not going to do that. But when did it start? When you knew
the radio?
Yes, when you knew you were going to be an interviewer and you were going to tell stories and pull all this great information out of people.
I didn't intend to be an interviewer. I needed a job in college, I thought, because my parents had died. I didn't know if I had enough money. And so I was just kind of generally anxious about it. And I said that to a friend, and this woman standing right there overheard me and was so kind. And she took out her business card and she said, "Did you say you needed a job?" And I said, "Yes." And she said, "Here's my business card. Call me up and then come. I work at the newspaper in town. This is the Willimantic Chronicle. Come and see me." And so I went down there, and I went there 3 times. And the second time, the man said to me, "Do you have any writing?" And I said, "Well, yes, because I loved to write even as a child." And so he said, "Well, bring that." And so I thought I was going to work in the circulation department or sweep. I didn't have a clue. And on the 3rd visit, he said to me, "Okay, come over here." He has a pipe, Malcolm Stannard. And he was a Navy man, and he was very trim and proper.
Casting, I love this.
And he walked over and he was puffing on his pipe, and he was such a gentleman. And he said, "Young lady, this is your desk. This is your typewriter. You're the women's editor." And I thought, what? And I was in college. I was a junior in college. And I came back and snuck back into my biology lecture. And my friends in the back said, did you get a job? And I said, yes. They said, what are you doing? And I said, I'm the women's editor of the newspaper.
What does that mean?
A roar went up. I mean, in the back of the auditorium.
So what does that mean, the women's editor? What did you
back in the day, remember? I mean, back in the day. No, you don't remember, you're too young. But back in the day, the women's section it was recipes and weddings and engagements and the junior women's club. But it was right on the cusp of changing. And so it became a section, which cracks me up, called contemporary living. Now, what other kind of living would there be? You know, living in the past was the only other choice.
Title, right? No,
I think I did, actually.
Did you really?
Yeah, I'm embarrassed to say.
Well, all right, you were a junior in college. That makes sense. Okay, so you start writing.
So then I start writing on a yellow legal pad. And my training reporter said, what are you doing? And I said, I'm writing. And he said, no, you have to type. And I said, I don't know how to type. And he said, see these two fingers? Start. And to this day, this is how I type. I type like a speed demon.
So do you text that way too?
No, I don't text. I never text.
I got a text from you the other day.
No, you're not from me. You didn't get a text from me.
I swear. Okay, it was your person that sent it.
The person. That would be the genius Lori Mack, actually.
All right, so let us start with how the Faith Middleton Show came about.
Well, I had been editor of Connecticut Magazine.
Right.
And they let the entire staff go because the top guy made them upset. And so the owner fired him and said, everybody goes. And this, I mean, it was so shocking to all of us. And I'd been there about 3 years, and we just didn't even know what had happened. We didn't know what he did. It turns out it really wasn't that bad, but he made this person mad, the owner of the magazine. And so you're all gone. So he comes in and he says to me, I'm fired. And I said, oh, you're not. And he said, I'm fired. And he said, but there's something else. He said, we're all fired. And so I took the summer off. And I got a job offer from the Washingtonian to be second in command there. I was supposed to go to Washington and cover Congress and the White House.
You kept falling into these wonderful things.
Yeah, except I accepted the job, and then I just never contacted them again. The man wrote me a note. In those days, you actually wrote a letter.
Cursive writing, maybe, too.
He said, you're not coming, are you? And I said, and then I had to confront my interior feelings. And I looked at the letter and I thought, no. And I realized for the first time in my life, I didn't do something because it was a jump in salary or circulation, a bigger audience. I did something for my heart, which was that I didn't want to leave my friends and family. And so I turned my back on ambition. And I thought...
Which you had grown up with, which everybody was, full of ambition.
Yep. I thought, this is good. I'm staying here, and I haven't a clue what I'm going to do. Because I had done at that point the things you would do next.
Sure.
And I didn't know what to do next. And then Connecticut Public Radio and Television called. And they said, come and speak to us. So I went and I spoke to them, and I took a voice test, and I thought, this is a disaster.
Was it this voice? Was it the butter voice?
I have no idea. I guess.
Probably.
I guess.
Okay, because you're soft-spoken. You really are.
Well,
I've never heard you scream, but maybe there's something else there too. I don't know.
Well, that's, a private matter.
So you take the test, and they say,
They
hired?
say, yeah, to my utter amazement, because I said to my friends, oh, what a disaster. I said, my voice is horrible. I couldn't pronounce a single difficult classical composer. They gave you sheets of them, because at that time we had classical music. And I thought, well, that's a disaster. And so, no, they say you're hired and you're going to have a show. And I was stunned, absolutely stunned. And so, I have to pause for a minute, because I'd been in print for 13 years. And I was a big public radio and public television fan. And they said, you're going to do radio and you're going to do some television series. And I thought, radio? I love public radio, but this is so strange. Words are written down. you hold them. You know, here they are, they're substantial, and I'm going to speak and the words are going to fly into the air? What is that?
Do you remember your first show?
Insubstantial.
Yeah. Do you remember your first show?
It turns out, though, can I just say, it turns
Absolutely.
out to be really what I'm in all this for is the intimacy. And radio turns out to be 50 million times more intimate than print.
Explain that.
I live to reach out to people, to connect with them. It's just who I am. And so in print, you could walk into a Friendly's and see someone reading your story, and you would think, well, that's, oh, they're reading it. That's interesting. You know, they're finding that interesting. In radio, and for you in television, it's there. The person's there.
And I love it that I can see you.
Yes.
And your body language and everything
Yeah.
else, so that you can read, you know, interviewing people for years and years and years. You've done it, I've done it. You can read a lot in a person's face, how they're, you know, getting tight, or they're kind of like this, or whatever it might be. So you're right, it's extremely intimate. And I still think that as the radio stations, more and more of them go away, and there's not long format, that's where you come in. You can sit and not see, but you can envision. With your butter voice, we've established that. When you get going, you are seamless. I was on your show, I know how this works, and you just keep going, and it's a rapid succession with you. You're seamless, and the brain opens up, and here we go.
Well, what do you think you're doing?
Well, I'm trying to. I'm trying to emulate Faith.
You're doing a wonderful job.
Who do you love most? And do you love them most to come on because you have no idea what they're going to do? Or you pretty much know who they are?
Such a cliche to say, don't make me choose among my children.
I'm doing it anyway.
But you're doing it anyway.
Yes.
So that's very hard for me to answer, because the regulars are so loved by me. So loved. I am so grateful for their continuing presence. And so a couple of people who come to mind, because I've known them all my adult life, are the psychologist on the air, Dr. Nancy Horn, who's a psychologist here in New Haven, who's my mentor, and Bruce Clements, who was my English professor in college. He and I have, for 30 years, looked at meaning. We've looked at meaning with people calling in and telling stories. And so it's been profound, and he is the most amazing, and he's a member of my family. And Nancy Horn, the same, just both so brilliant and original. Everybody's original, but in a way that I can't even describe. They're perfect people.
Wow, a perfect person. I'm not sure I've ever met one of those. I've got to hang out with you more often.
I think so.
So
I tried to get wine into this
yeah,
interview,
I know you
and
did.
it did not
You
work.
did, and perhaps it's another show, and maybe it will be. But I am so, you know, we're kind of kinfolk in that we do very similar things. But I have never.
You know I watch you.
Well, you're very kind. But you and
I
I
do.
both. Let's just call this a rectangle.
You are quality.
Oh, you're very sweet. Now stop it. Anyway, so this is a rectangle. You and I could do 3 minutes on a rectangle because we're storytellers. I mean, it happens to be an iPhone, but we're storytellers. And I think that we try to get the information out so that you can sit back and go, I did a good job with that, because I think there was a who, what, when, where, why, and how, and maybe it made you mad, maybe it made you angry, whatever it was, but it evoked some kind of emotion, and that's what you do. And is there ever a day where you think, because there isn't for me, if I can tell a really good story, I just sit back and I'm in awe of most people and their lives and their stories, whatever it is. Do you feel the same way?
I think I have an inner wish to bring out the best in people. And so I listen for things. I don't just listen to them. And so I come to a conversation with anybody with an expectation that something important is going to pass by. And it could be an articulate person or an inarticulate person. It doesn't matter.
But I think you hit it on the head. You are listening. You don't have scripted questions in front of you. And by the way, these aren't questions. It's just padding sitting right here. You're listening for a gem that somebody is saying to you that you can build on.
Something important.
Right. And I think a lot of people don't listen to what somebody is telling them and draw it out. Do you agree?
Yes. So how do you think you became a listener? Were you always like
I think
this?
it was innate.
Mm-hmm.
It's just what I do. I'm looking, well, how is this turning around to an interview on me?
You said we're just going to have a conversation.
Which is what
so
we're
I'm
doing.
making it be
Yes.
that. So
you see?
you see that's so sneaky of
But
me.
we both can do that. But I think the viewer, the listener, appreciates coming away with a nugget. Maybe they get 2 or 3, but they get some interesting story about faith that maybe they didn't know. And you've done countless interviews and countless, and I just read another article on you in a magazine. But I think if people get to see you, listen to you, if you're relaxed, you're talking about your life, things that are going on. I mean, so many momentous things have happened to you, and you describe that as just kind of, well, I didn't know it was happening, and I fell into this, and then this happened. But these are huge things that you've been recognized for.
Oh, yeah.
Huge.
Yeah.
In the state and elsewhere. I mean, 2 Peabodys, who wins 2 Peabodys? They just don't. Doesn't happen that often. Who's inducted to the Connecticut Hall of Fame for women?
So there's an old Buddhist saying. Well,
I
they're
feel
all
a turn
old.
coming here.
They're all old. There's a Buddhist saying, don't get too attached to the good things or the bad things that are said about you.
Sure.
And the reason I'm saying this to you is because my friend, I have a very dear friend who's on public radio nationally, Robert Krulwich, and we were sitting around one day having a talk, and he said to me, you know what the danger is for people like us who've been in this business for a long time? And I said, what? He said that we end up sounding like a version of ourselves. And I just looked at him and I thought, this is important. What does he mean? Mm-hmm. And I said, how would we sound like a version? And he said, we're in the public, and so we get a lot of feedback from people. They say, oh, you do this, you speak like this, you say this, you act like this. And he said, you can end up performing yourself, doing a version of yourself.
Dear.
And that keeps you from taking risks and then that keeps you from growing and changing. And so I think that's the game. That's what I try and keep that's the promise I have kept. He told me this about 20 years ago, and I've tried to keep that promise. Faith, don't do that.
Well, you strike me as the type of person that doesn't listen to that. You're just doing what you're doing. You found your comfort zone, as you said. You're comfortable in what you do, and you just do it. The world's going on around you, and there's all these different things, and you're telling all of these different stories and finding all these just wonderful people to interview, but that's what you do. But you're not listening to the other noise going on, and that's the key to not acting like yourself. You're just doing what you do.
Yes.
So good job. So very good job.
You too.
Stop that. Now listen, the induction ceremony is happening in October, and that's just awesome. You know, think of all the women that have come. I think there are 99, 100. I don't know what they've. This has been going on since 1994. Some dead, some alive that they've inducted.
Yeah.
And in one's life, I know you're not listening to the noise, but you've achieved probably what you were supposed to do, whether you knew it or not. And that's just really neat. I mean, you can pat yourself on the back a little bit if you want, even though you're not that type of a person. You really can. I'm giving you permission.
Yeah, that is sweet. It's so sweet of you to say that, but I don't, before I won the Peabody, and I won it the year that Charles Kuralt, my, media hero, won it. And so I pretty much used my time,
Thanking him.
I did. I was almost out of time.
Totally understand that.
And after I won that Peabody, and I thought, before that, I wanted to do something important. And I wanted I wanted to have a sign that I was doing a good job at this because I was new to it. And I felt a little insecure about that. And so getting the Peabody was certainly a nod that I was doing an okay job. So, and you know what? That old cliche, you get up the next day and put your leg in your slacks again, and there you go, you start all over again.
Just like everybody else.
Monday.
Get over yourself.
I came back from New York at the ceremony, and there it was, and we had to start all over again. And I thought, aha. And so that was really, there you go. What does it all mean?
Right.
I don't know. I'm in it for creativity. That's the subject of my life. That's what I care about. Creativity in people. And I think every person is creative, and I like to watch that unfold, and bring this creativity to others, and to say, this makes me want to get up in the morning, to say, look at this, listen to this. That's what I want to do. And that's why I love what I do. So, of course, I'm not thinking about, I'm delighted. You know what I think about the Women's Hall of Fame?
Go ahead, tell me.
It's not, I am so proud to live in a country, in the United States of America, that has a place like a Hall of Fame for women, that we think enough of women in this country to have a place like that. And my dream, if I could have a dream connected to this, would be that all of us, at some point in our lives, do something to recognize another woman, or many of them, until all the women in the world are recognized for their achievements, for their strengths, for what they've accomplished in little villages and big cities. That would be a great world. That's what I think about the Hall of Fame. How lucky I am, United States of America.
What a wonderful thing to say. And that's exactly what I would have expected you to say. And we should end here, but I'm not done yet, because I want to ask, are there other things that you want to try, that you want to take chances at? And do you know what they are?
Yes.
What are they?
That question about if you had to come back as something else, I would be a...
You're going to tell me a tree like Catherine Hepburn,
no,
oak tree?
Like Barbara Walters'
yes,
tree
that's what
question.
she asked her.
No, I because I play congas, to Latin and Caribbean music, I would want to come back as a jazz singer and pianist. So I would also like to be a New Yorker cartoonist, and I would like to make a film, a satire probably, and I would like to sing with an orchestra once. Let's see, I have a couple of books I would like to write. I would like to spend as much time with my family and friends as possible, and remember as often as I can. I'm trying to. I'm learning to meditate, and so I did it for a while back, a few years ago, and got out of the habit, and I'm back in it again. So I'm trying to work on. So it's a goal, being right here, right now, like I am with you. Breathing and taking in this with you. I just want to do that through my whole life as much as I can. There's a book about spiritual genius, and I thought, I was rolling my eyes. I thought, now we have to have levels for people who are smart, but it was the most brilliant book because spiritual geniuses are people who can hold in their minds almost all the time that this moment could be the last moment. I can't do that. And all of us run from that. Joan Didion just wrote a book about that.
Well, you have too much to do.
Well, it's not just that. It's so scary. That idea is so scary. But the other part, the flip side of it, which is, I'm here now. You're here now, is so beautiful. And if I can do that as much as possible, then that's going to be a good thing.
Well, Faith, this is to be continued because this has not been enough time, which I knew this exact same thing would happen. That
And
we would
do
have enough time.
do I get to ask more questions of you the next time?
Absolutely.
That's only fair.
Thank you for coming on, and thank you for just being Faith and telling stories about yourself. And I hope people got to know you a little bit better.
Well, you're very kind to have me on.
Now
and to say
stop
the
that.
things you
Just
did.
say thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks, Faith.
I follow orders. Thank you.